Before we get into today's NFL mailbag, who do you have winning the Super Bowl this year? C for the Kansas City Chiefs or E for the Philadelphia Eagles? Go vote in the comments of today's show. True or Lore, who should the Niners target at pick number 11? It's a good question. A lot of this comes down to who's on the board. There's not going to be like an obvious clear-cut consensus first rounder, I think, there. Out in this like Ashton Genty falls or something. I think there's going to be a lot of disagreement in this class this year. Like there will be teams that have, hey, I have a first-round grade on this edge, but it could be like a number 5 edges. It's not going to be consensus on which edge that is. Who's left? Who do you have highly valued? Same with the offensive line. There will probably be a first-round grade on their board. Which offensive line is it? Will Campbell? Is it Kelvin Banks? Is it Amar Membu? On and on and on. It's the edge, Mike Green, Mikael Williams, James Pierce. Like, there's going to be disagreement. I think trench play in general is a critical factor for San Francisco. I would like an offensive lineman, whether it's Will Campbell, Armand Membu, Kelvin Banks. I think Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. I think all those guys can fit in San Francisco. Or for San Francisco, I should say. From Rafe, which seems more likely for the Texans, Cooper Kupp or Stefon Diggs? I would like to say Cooper Kupp. I think that's a good fit for what they want to do on offense. Money-wise, probably not a huge difference either. Rams tight ends coach, pass game coordinator is the new OC. I'm not confident in it because he's not a free agent, so who knows? But I'll actually shoot my shot and say Kupp. From Smithers, will the Niners trade Deebo Samuel? The Deebo contract is weird. It's kind of a mess because it's not built to be traded. It's built for him to stay on the team and then figure out what they do after that. So I could see it happening if they just want to move on altogether. The way it's structured, moving on next year makes a little bit more sense, but there's a kind of complicated option bonus that's about to be put into play here. Doesn't make a lot of sense for a trade. If anything, maybe post-draft a trade starts to make more sense, but possible. I'm still going to go no right now. Will the Niners end up trading Deebo Samuel? Which I've been listening on the fly still. It is the pinned comment on today's show, so if the ad comes here on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and let me know. Y for yes, N for no. Dr. Pancake, a $2 super chat. What would you do if you were at number 3 and were the New York Giants? What I would do if I was a new GM just now taking over versus what I would do if I were in the shoes of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are two different answers, actually. If I were in the Daboll-Schoen spot, I'd be like, I got to take my QB. If I don't get a new QB and get some hope going for this franchise and show promise, I'm getting fired. It would be an act of desperation to take Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders and try to save my job with a young French QB saying, look, we have our guy. You got to keep us. We have our guy now. That's what I would do. Now, if I were building a new team, if I were just taking the job, I would trade down. I'd say, give me assets. My roster needs work. I need time to develop all this out. I don't want to lock myself into a QB in a class that I don't love necessarily. And that's why I think the Giants made a mistake bringing back Schoen and Brian Daboll, because now their decisions are based out of pressure and desperation to save their jobs, not what is best long-term for the organization. From Mike Nintendo Master, will the Deshaun Watson trade go down as the worst trade in NFL and Browns history? I think whenever you mention the worst trades, it will now be Herschel Walker and Deshaun Watson. That Watson trade has been a disaster for Cleveland. It sunk draft assets. They spent a ton of money on it. Now Myles Garrett wants out. It's been a mess in Cleveland. Now, maybe it'll help start the rebuild and they can move on at that point. And, no guarantee necessarily that, the next quarterback's any good either. But it did not work out the way the Browns wanted to. And it should be very telling that their best success came when Deshaun Watson wasn't on the field. Now, this is often a results-based question. Like, there have been some bad trades, even in recent memory, ended up working out fine because the results were good. Like, for example, the Trey Lance trade, the Niners gave up a lot, but they also looked into Brock Purdy in the same draft, or later, and ended up winning a bunch of games still. but I think the Watson and Herschel Walker ones go up there pretty high. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. It is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and it's now or never. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season. Take advantage of the free square on Prize Picks. It is a half passing yard from Patrick Mahomes. Saquon Barkley, more than yards on the ground. Xavier Worthy, more than rush yards. I love the idea of a reverse for him. That's my Prize Picks, so you can pick your own or ride with that one. Go download the Prize Picks app today over at prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play that first $5 lineup. Win or lose, you get that $50 after the first $5 lineup is played. Use code CLNS over at prizepicks.com/CLNS. From Rafe again. Does Houston look for a guard early in the draft to go to guard in free agency, or you see it as one or the other? It's a good question. Houston is also kind of entering a dangerous territory where you've spent big money and assets on Laramie Tunsil. You spent a first-round pick on Titus Howard. You spent a first-round pick on Kenyon Green. You traded for Shaq Mason and paid him. You drafted Blake Fisher in round 2. You drafted Drew Scruggs in round 2. That is a massive amount of draft capital and money to spend on your offensive line. And at some point, you kind of got to go, look, we have to address other needs too. You can't just keep throwing all of the premium assets on your offensive line. Coaching should matter here too, and maybe get better results from a coaching perspective. I think adding a guard makes sense. Wouldn't be shocked if like Shaq Mason got moved on from. Maybe keep trying Titus Howard in there at guard. I think a cheap veteran backup guard and early like low-end starting guard and maybe a try again on day 2 is a decent plan for Houston. From Jace, Myles Garrett to where? It took us this long to get a Garrett question. I think a lot of teams make sense. Depends on do the Browns actually move him and how much is the bidding war go for in the end. I think the Bears make sense. I think the Lions are super intriguing. I would bet they would trade him to the NFC more than anything else, but there's a lot of teams that have interest in Myles Garrett. There's almost no wrong answer here because it's Myles Garrett. Every team can find a way to make it work if they want to. Matter of who wants to the most. Who will end up trading for Myles Garrett? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Your boy Alex. What if Seattle got Cooper Kupp? With Lockett possibly in the season and how washed he is, could we possibly try and upgrade Kupp to a good receiver again? I kind of feel like that's a little bit of like 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Like you're moving on from Lockett because he's expensive and aging and declining production. And the Rams are on from Kupp because he's aging, expensive, and declining production. I also think that the JSN role is probably a little bit repetitive with Cooper Kupp. And I don't know if you need another highly paid, expensive, high investment third receiver. I think let JSN, let DK, if you're going to keep DK in that scenario, be your top 2 guys, and then find a cheaper third. Lacora Victor, if the Bears get Myles Garrett, will they have the number 1 defense on top of like they did for Khalil Mack back in 2018? I like Dennis Allen a lot as a defensive coordinator, so you add Myles Garrett to that mix. Maybe they're not number 1, maybe they're like number 3 or 5 or something, but I think if you add the Bears to that, all of a sudden, or Garrett to the Bears, you feel really good about that defense overall. We will be live here on Chat Sports for the Super Bowl, a live stream coming for that game, like we have for all the NFL and college football playoff games. Hit that sub button so you don't miss out. YouTube.com/ChatSportsTV. From Bryce Blackwell, what team will spend the most money this offseason? The obvious one to me is the Patriots, because they've got more cap space than any NFL organization. They have a new regime in charge that makes them probably more likely to spend. They have a cheap young quarterback. I think maybe they only finish 3rd or something, but I would expect the Patriots to be aggressive this offseason. There's no reason not to be. Richard Arnold, will the Rams also trade Matthew Stafford? Clever thought. I don't know what the Rams' big picture plan is. Stafford's kind of with the Rams, kind of at a fork in the road, I'll call it. He's got a big cap. It's almost $50 million. It's a lot. It's not outlandish with the way the salary cap's gone up, but it is a lot. And also just $27 million in cash this year with $4 million guaranteed. Doubt he wants to restructure again. Doubt the Rams want to do that. Do they go with the extension or say, let's just ride this one out? I think that is a conversation that will have to be had in that building. So name a player who you think gets traded. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Garrett Brown's prods. Oh boy, I'm sorry, buddy. What do you do as the Browns right now to make the playoffs? He also asked, what would I do if I were the Browns? I think those are two different questions. If I were the Browns, I would look at my roster. I'd look at what's happened. I'd look at my money in my quarterback room and say, we gave it a good try. It's Garrett wants out. This is bad. Let's tear it down. And I would say, Myles, we love you. You sure you don't want to work this out? We will try to win. If he says, no, I don't believe in this team, okay, then you blow it up. If you were keeping Myles Garrett and you want to make the playoffs, I don't love this quarterback class. I don't want to invest heavily in a guy that I don't fully believe in at number 2 overall. I'll take either Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, or trade down if I can get more assets there, and I'll go try to find a stopgap veteran. That might be somebody like Kirk Cousins. That doesn't inspire great confidence, but if I can get him for on a cut, if he gets released for $1 million a year, that's pretty good value. That might be the path I try to pursue if I were trying to win games right now. Christian, I got the perfect offseason for Pittsburgh. Sign DJ Reed, sign Devontae Adams, then draft Emeka Egbuka and Cam Skattebo. It's a fun 4 moves. Here's my big question. What's the quarterback situation look like in Pittsburgh? Because that is the thing I have the biggest question marks about. Last one here from Rob. I have Cooper Kupp going to Denver as the veteran leader. I don't mind that fit at all. I think Sean Payton is kind of always in the mood for he made Michael Thomas elite on slants. You would use Cooper Kupp in a bit more creative fashion, I think, but that possession receiver underneath clearly works in the Broncos offense.